Okay, let's begin. I would like to call the meeting of the Nauset Regional School Committee to order. It is Wednesday, March 18th at 6:02. We are in the Nauset room of the Nauset Middle School. As required by the open meeting law, we are informing you that the district will be videotaping this public meeting. In addition, if anyone else intends to either video or audio tape this meeting, they are required to inform the chair. Okay, I don't believe there are any agenda. It's not much on the agenda.
There are none this evening.
Important. On that agenda. So we will move to public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public to speak. Is there anybody out there? There's somebody, but nobody wants to speak. Nobody wants to speak now. All right, so we will move on then, to priority business. A, announcement, director of facilities. Superintendent.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Apologies to back that into the agenda, but we'll make sure that it does. Just to take this opportunity to bring to attention of the committee and of course, equally important our community about an upcoming change, and appointment of a gentleman to replace Bob Caperso. As you know, Bob has served for close to 3 years as the director of facilities here in the region, overseeing the middle school, the high school, and the central office buildings. Come to really appreciate all of that importance that falls within that that individual, that portfolio, and certainly Bob Caperso represented us greatly over the last few years, particularly in the high school project. The announcement comes to share with the community that we have a new individual who will take over that position of director of facilities and grounds. The individual is Mr. Kevin Hayden, who will start at the beginning of April. Kevin has extensive experience in facilities management, and most notably at the school level as well too. His experience extends beyond management, construction, and operations. But since 2015, he has served as the facilities manager for the Foxborough Regional Charter School District, a school that includes multiple facilities. During his tenure, he's been involved in a number of major projects, capital improvement projects, and has extensive experience with systems, maintenance, and building projects, the RFP process, and so on. So, all accounts, the stars aligned, and we got really lucky to be able to attract an individual with this kind of experience. So we're excited to have him join us, and Bob Caperso is committed to making sure that there's a smooth transition, despite the fact that he's retired. He's not far away from us, and he will be back in district and help support the onboarding Kevin here in the near future. So just wanted to share that with the committee and members of our community this evening.
Oh, this is great news. Anybody have any questions, comments? All right, we welcome him. Has he seen you in high school?
He's heard about it. And I should say, well, once he gets settled, we'll certainly bring him to meet folks in person, if time permits in future committee.
And we promise not to scare him away, right? That will be tonight. Good, that's great news. Because I know it was difficult to find Bob when we came on board, so it's good to have him here. Welcome, take a seat. All right, so we're gonna move on then to the reason we're here for the third week in a row. Our region budget discussions. You all have the budgets. So we have the central office budget, which we reviewed and moved at the joint school committee. The middle school and high school budget that we've seen a couple of times at least. along with the region only budget, and then the capital budget, which we reviewed at, I think our last meeting. So all of these budgets haven't changed since, we reviewed them last. So I didn't plan to go through them line by line because we've already done that. But to take a leap and look at the region combined budget, because that's got it all there. So Jen, if you could put that on the screen. Well. All right, here we are.
Well, it's all right, to the chair, Bob, you want to take the community to do this through?
Sure. So you also saw this document last week, but I will walk you through it. There are a couple of changes, nothing to the FY 27 proposed draft, but there are some changes to the FY 26 numbers which don't impact the budget, but impact the percent changes, and I'll just draw your attention to those so you're aware of the difference between last week and this week. 2 weeks ago and this week I'm kind of losing track of, I've been looking at these numbers a lot lately. So the central office, region share of the central office, 2,360,168. You can see the percent increase. There's no change to that. Not in FY 26 or FY 27. Region only, 14,686,977. There is a reduction from FY 26 of 2.17%. We've talked about the reason for that is that we transferred some costs from the region only to the central office where they belong, as it was actually recommended a year ago. Middle school, the FY 26 approved budget is a little different now than what you saw last time we were here. So the increase is actually 3.69%. I think last time it was a little bit less. It's not a significant change in FY 26. The FY 27 number is exactly as it was last time. Similarly for the high school, the numbers are the same from 26 to 27, no changes, and a slight increase of 0.8% in their budget. And then a total region expense of $40,795,328,000. A dollar increase of $679,321, which represents 1.69% increase. So those are your expenses. Revenue, there were a few changes to the FY 26 revenue numbers, and I'll explain the reason for most of those. Chapter 70 state aid, state transportation aid, charter school, all of the state controlled aid numbers were based on a budget number that came from the state when you approved your budget. What I had put in there inadvertently was the final number that came from the state in June or July, whenever their budget was approved. So the number had modified from what you had voted. And I put that there, and I should not have, because that's not what you approved. So we keep your approved numbers even if they change in that column. E&D also changed. I had accidentally put the $250,000 that was voted late in the year for FY 25 into the FY 26 budgeted number here. It's not in the real budget, so you don't have to worry that we have a miscalculation. So that changes the percentages a bit. So your total revenue is $8,893,073, a decrease of $783,454. the bulk of that being in E&D. There is a slight decrease in transportation aid. The explanation for that decrease is not because the state is reimbursing at a lower rate. It is because our costs have gone down because we are not paying lease fees. We've completed the lease payments. But we are scheduled for new buses for next year, but you won't see those lease payments until the FY28 budget. So that brings us to a total operating budget of $31,902,255, which is the $40,795 minus the revenue. That's your operating budget, a 4.81% increase. Into that, we add your construction debt service, which is for the new high school, $145,784 more. That includes the interest payment that will be due next March on the $5 million that we borrowed. It was already authorized way back when you approved the borrowing originally. We've never borrowed the full amount that was authorized. The agreed upon capital plan projects go up by 2.5%. So you see 15,434 there for a combined total assessment of $40,506, $551. $40,506,551. An increase of $1,623,993, which represents 4.18% increase overall to the budget. So I would look for a motion to approve this budget, and then obviously any discussion through the chair. And we go move on from there.
Okay, does anybody have any questions before we move to the motion? Anybody in the room? Anybody out
Yes.
there? Yes?
Yes.
I can't see you, so yes, speak up. There you go, Chris.
So just a couple quick questions. First off, where do we sit on our revolving accounts in E&D? We're spending this money, but don't have an accounting for those accounts that I've seen.
Well, you're revolving, the only revolving accounts that you're speaking of are Truro and Provincetown, and then the elementary principal, the therapists and curriculum directors. And we are sitting in a positive position on all of those. We've not overspent the budgeted amounts that were in there. And to be honest, we have not drawn those amounts down yet in this year's budget. So I'm confident we're fine there. E&D, we've submitted for certification. We're allowed 5%, which would represent about 2.6 million. We are at about 2.5 million, which we submitted. So we're just below the 5% at this point. But when we take out another million, we'll be at about 1.5 million in that account for the following year.
So in the past, when we've done our budgets, we've always gotten an accounting of where our revolving accounts sit, their dollar amounts, because we're draining them to help pay for this budget. It's like we're acting blind now, not knowing what we have left.
Chris?
Yes.
I think you saw them in the budgets themselves. Remember in the region only budget that the school choice money was used to lower the health costs. So it's already been taken out.
So that account has been zeroed out, we're saying.
No, I'm not saying it's been zeroed out.
So that's what I'm saying, Judy. We should have an accounting. Shouldn't we have where these accounts sit at this point?
Yes, we can have an accounting. I don't know that we need it to pass the budget, but yes, absolutely. Of all of the revolving accounts, there are a lot of them. I believe that's on the agenda of the Budget and Finance Subcommittee to do next month.
Yeah, we were gonna review the whole status of the revolving accounts.
No.
Bob was putting it together for us.
I mean, normally when we get to this stage of our budgeting process, we have a look at where we stand financially in each of our accounts, where we stand on E&D, so that we know what we're spending and what we've got left to cover us throughout. We're kind of, at least from what I've seen, we don't have that. And so it's just, we're not getting a picture of where we're standing financially.
We did look at it in the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. We looked at the revolving fund. But we didn't make it available to the total committee, and we'd be more than
I
glad.
appreciate it, but budgeting is a responsibility of the total committee, not just the subcommittee.
As I said, we'd be very glad to provide you with that. We have healthy balances in our funds. We didn't go in and take everything out in choice and, or at least in the choice that I know.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Catherine has her hand up, and Carrie, I do too.
Okay, Carrie,
Catherine was first, sorry.
Catherine?
I just had a question. Is this where I ask a question on the region only budget, or are we going to talk about that later?
No, you can ask it now.
So what is the line item of the salary for the Director of Communications and Community Engagement in the region only budget?
I don't think it's in the regional
It's in the
budget.
central office.
It's in the central office budget.
Oh, it's in the central office.
Right, the one that we passed at the joint committee.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss that any further.
No, that budget's been passed,
Okay,
approved by all 5 committees.
thank you.
Yeah, sure. Carrie?
Yeah, thanks. Just to go back to what Chris was saying, if you look at the region-only budget at the bottom summary, it does talk about there are 4 accounts that are broken out where circuit breaker funds are discussed, and those are used as offsets for the budget, and it shows where they're covering the certain areas. So we're using these 4 funds as offsets. One is circuit breaker, one is school choice funds, another is the Cape Cod Tech revolving funds because they pay us for some services that we provide, and also the use of Firebird revolving funds. So those 4 funds are used to offset the region-only budget. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for pointing that out. I have not seen that, but those are the revolving funds that are listed.
So, I mean,
Yes,
just so we're clear, they're listed there as far as what we're taking out. There isn't an accounting of those funds there, though.
no. Sure, you are correct.
So just to respond to part of that, circuit breaker as an example, we are always functioning from a perspective of using funds in arrears. So we're always a year ahead, I guess, for lack of a better term. So the funds that we use in circuit breaker are the funds that we are getting now this year. We'll be using them for next year. We don't use the funds in the year that we receive them. Everything that you're seeing on the cover page of the combined area are state aid funds, and those are forward-looking based on the cherry sheet numbers. So those are dollars at a minimum that we know we will be receiving. And as you saw last year, most of the time that number is increasing. The tuition numbers are based on anticipated enrollments for next year and the revenue that we anticipate coming in. If the revenue that comes in is larger than what we had anticipated, that surplus stays in the account. So there is money sitting in that account, as well as the account below the tuition line item. Similarly, for estimated receipts, that's based on interest, primarily interest earned on the funds that we have sitting in interest-bearing accounts, which are the bond monies that we received for the building. So we can project that reasonably well also. And again, if the numbers come in higher, I can tell you that these are generally, when I'm putting numbers in there, they're conservative, and I anticipate that the amounts coming in for next year will be larger than the amounts that we are actually going to receive. So it's safe as far as the dollar amounts. Hopefully that helps, respond to some of your concerns. The other funds that are used above the line, the offsets that are in each school budget, those again are usually grants, not revenue accounts, that we know what those funds are anticipated to be. And again, we don't expend all of the grant funds specifically for 2-year grants, like the special ed grant, IDEA. So there are funds remaining from the previous year that supplement the amounts that we've budgeted in the event that there's a need. So it's a cautious revenue projection for all of these. And I'm happy to provide the information to the budget subcommittee, who will then bring it to the committee as a whole at our next meeting. Happy to do so. I understand you feel it would be nice to have this now. But it's not there right now, Chris.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob. I'm not trying to realize we are in a challenging year, and I appreciate all that you've done. So I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt here. But, in general, when we come to the budget time or budget season, we normally have a full financial picture of where we stand. And that includes those accounts as well as E&D. I've been asking for E&D for a couple months now, a couple meetings, and have not heard anything about it. Or, even just, a semi-reporting or what went in for our update. So it's like we're traveling blind here and spending money, and I'm not questioning your veracity by any stretch, but it's just normally we had that information to decide when it came time. I mean, at budget season, what we spent out of these various accounts. And so I guess the first question is, why the difference?
The E&D question, I believe, was answered. It's about 2.5 million. Do we have it down to the dollar? No, but there's 2.5 million in E&D that is waiting to be certified. And out of that, we are using $1 million.
And I'm sorry, the other revolving?
And the revolving funds, we have never looked at all of the revolving funds. There was always one sheet where we looked at the
ones
main
that we
one.
took funds out of to pay the budget was what we looked at.
Finish, Chris. We looked at the main ones that we used, which was circuit breaker and which was choice and maybe a couple of others. We have the numbers here that we're using. No, we don't have the totals. That is not included. And it's too bad that it's not, but we will get them at the next meeting, so that everybody can look at them. In the meantime, they have been looked at. We're not using money that's not there. So we get your point, you've asked your question, you've made a good point. We will try to correct the revolving fund one at the next meeting. So do you have another question? No, okay.
It's a point of process. I'm sorry, Judy, it's just kind of a point of process of what we've
Sure.
done in the past to what we're doing now. And so I'm just wondering,
I get that, Chris, you've made your point. There's nothing more to say. Do you want us not to vote on the budget?
I realize that that is not an ideal situation, but in the same sense, the ideal situation is that we have the information such that we have the knowledge to vote on it. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but that is the process. I mean, that is the process. So,
Okay.
so I will.
Thanks for your input. Okay, all right. Anything else? Anybody have anything else? All right, then we'll move on to the motion. Maura has the pleasure.
A bit of a word salad, so please bear with me, get through this. So I move that the Nauset Regional School Committee adopt a gross operating budget for fiscal year 27 in the amount of $40,795,328 to be reduced by fiscal year 27 revenue in the amount totaling $8,893,073, including fiscal year 27 excess and deficiency in the amount of $1 million, fiscal year 27 transportation aid in the amount of $979,145, fiscal year 27 charter school aid in the amount of $274,502, fiscal year 27 Truro and Provincetown tuition in the amount of $1,856,497, fiscal year 27 elementary therapist tech curriculum director in the amount of $100,000, estimated receipts in the amount of $600,000 together with any available state aid. And that the committee adopt a gross capital budget for fiscal year 27 in the amount of $8,604,295.50, comprised of construction debt service in the amount of $7,971,491, and capital plan projects in the amount of $632,805.
50 cents.
And 30 cents.
And 50 cents.
And 50. And 50.
Okay, is that it? You sure? Okay, there's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm not gonna repeat all that, but we adopt the budget, the FY 27 budget. Is there any more discussion? Okay, we're gonna take a roll call vote, and if you could please, give your name before you vote so that we have it for the record. This requires, a 2/3 vote to pass. So, we'll start with, Tom,
Yes.
state your name.
Tom Fitzgibbons, yes.
Rick,
Draper, yes.
Maureen and Carrie, yes.
Judith Schumacher, yes.
Katie Cole, yes. Sarah Steer, yes.
Catherine,
Catherine Lonsdale, yes.
Chris,
Chris Easley, yes.
and Carrie.
Harry Hoffman, yes.
Okay, guys, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We have a FY 27 budget. This budget has to get to the towns by Friday, which is what Mr. Dutch is gonna do. So you wanna go on and continue
You,
talking about The assessments, so, you have the assessments and enrollment, the one, my mistake, that is on the agenda, there is no vote on the assessment. The assessment is what the assessment is. We voted the dollars, the assessment will be calculated according to our regs. But everybody's interested in it, so
Sure.
we'll start with that.
So we've calculated the assessments using the regional agreement. The operating assessment is calculated utilizing the statutory method, which the school committee voted to utilize rather than the alternative method. It is, the operating assessment is based on student enrollment by town, including its foundation enrollment, basically all students who are attending Nauset schools, middle school, high school, charter school students, school choice students that live in the 4 districts, 4 towns. And that creates a percentage obligation for each town based on those enrollments. There you have a document in your packet, I believe, that had all of the calculations so that you can see what those are. It's the statutory formula that's utilized. Ultimately, Brewster represents 46.94% of the enrollment, Eastham 20.18%, Orleans 21.37%, and Wellfleet 11.51%. So we utilize that number based on all of the budgetary information except capital. The capital assessment is based purely on the enrollment of students from the 4 towns, not including charter and school choice students. So the percentages are slightly different, and the capital expense, both debt service and capital article amounts, are combined to determine the assessment calculation for capital. Brewster represents 44.72%, Eastham 21.76%, Orleans 21.33%, and Wellfleet 12.19%. We then add those 2 amounts together, and that gets us to the total assessment. Tomorrow, I will be calling, either myself or Glenn will be calling the town administrators and the finance directors and letting them know what the assessment total is. I'll share the calculation with them so they have all of this information. And then once town meeting votes the assessment, either Glenn or the treasurer will send out the assessment letter, which details the operating and capital expense for each town with a schedule of payment, being July 1, September 1, April 1, and I don't know what the last date is. They're there. Sorry, July, October, January, and April of first of each month. So I would be happy to answer any questions. The assessments are on these sheets for you. Questions?
Carrie.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Bob, for a really complicated but detailed and transparent budget process, and all of the other staff that has contributed to this as well. A couple of things. So you had mentioned some percentage for the assessments. Our sheets that we have in our packet give the foundation enrollment for 2026. The numbers that we are given for the percentages are just a tad different from what you just stated. And what the numbers you stated are not on our sheets. Can you just discuss why?
Yes, we had gone back and forth looking at confirming enrollment numbers, and we had sent information out to the towns based on October 1 enrollment. Much of what they were doing was based on those numbers. So those were the numbers that we have utilized. The total number of students in the district is 1,095. You, I think, may have 1,094
No,
possibly.
we have 195. It's more the
Okay,
I think she's talking about the difference between the
capital.
there are two different, there are two different enrollment numbers that are used. The one
Okay.
foundation that you have is 1095. The other one that Bob was talking about are the numbers that are used for the capital costs, and that would include only the Nauset students.
correct.
So Brewster has, I believe, 411.
Eastham has 200, Orleans is 196, Wellfleet is 112, and the total enrollment in the middle school and the high school is 919, not including school choice and charter.
Okay. So then the numbers that you just dictated are the percentage of those particular numbers for the capital costs, correct?
The 0.4472.
Correct.
Yes.
For Brewster. And then what was Eastham again?
21.76%.
Thank you. And then Orleans is
Orleans.
21.33.
Yep,
And then Wellfleet.
12.19.
Okay.
And those are only used to calculate the capital. So our total capital is 8,604,296. So you multiply the 8,604,296 times 44.72%, and you get the debt service and capital article cost for Brewster as an example.
And that's on the bottom of that sheet, that first page of our
Yes.
assessment document.
Yes,
Great.
it is.
Thank you for that clarification. That was helpful.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else?
Is it possible to ask a clarifying question? I'll put it in the email.
You can ask it afterwards.
Because the numbers still have issues on the enrollment between what was shown.
I think probably asking it afterwards.
You can ask it after. Okay.
Okay, anything else? We have a budget? We have assessments? We're ready to go? I believe we've come to number 10.
I move we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you, everybody. See you
Thank
next.
you.
It's been